Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the JD Rucker Show. If you are watching the evening show, which starts at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, then awesome. If you're watching the daytime show, which starts at various times depending on what's happening in the news, then that's awesome as well. But either way, you should find me wherever you want to find me, whatever platforms you use, Rumble, X, YouTube, BitChute, all the various networks, all the various areas where the show's broadcast. You can find all those, plus my websites, plus my socials, and even my sponsors. You can go to jdrucker.com/find, jdrucker.com/find. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the JD Rucker Show. It's funny, yesterday I had noted how my cohort over at thelibertydaily.com asked me, hey, do you think things are slowing down? I mean, it seems like we're getting sort of back into a normal news cycle for the first time, really, since just before the election. Yeah, we had election coverage leading up to the election. That was all crazy, and then the election itself was awesome. And then after the election, we started seeing more news. And then once President Trump was in office, it was just like a tsunami of news coming in every single day, multiple times per day. And things he had noted seemed to be slowing down. And then all of a sudden, President Trump comes out and he just starts signing a bunch of executive orders. And a lot of them were bombshells. These aren't just little, we're going to rename this Peruvian parakeet. No, he was talking, for example, about voter fraud, election integrity, a sweeping executive order that included, and I'm very happy about this, compelling states to engage in voter ID. Now, again, it's an executive order, therefore there's going to be challenges, and perhaps more importantly, there's going to be some questions that come out from the states, and they'll seek ways to overcome the executive order, whereas if Congress could do its job and start codifying some of this stuff, then hey, we have more solid ground upon which to stand. He also signed an executive order, another bombshell, about Crossfire Hurricane, taking it, declassifying it, and making it to where, hey, that Russian collusion hoax, well, we're finally going to reveal what was actually taking place, and perhaps more importantly, what wasn't taking place, such as actual evidence gathering. They didn't start gathering evidence until they said that, hey, here's evidence of wrongdoing, so we're going to use that, even though it doesn't exist, as justification for us to try to find evidence of wrongdoing. Now, they never found wrongdoing at all, so why did we spend so much time, so much mind share, and of course so much taxpayer dollars on a futile and frivolous investigation that divided the country? And to this day, there are still people who believe that there's some sort of Russian P-tape floating around there. Let's see what else. Ending sanctuary cities. He didn't sign an executive order, but he mentioned an executive order that's coming that would eliminate sanctuary cities. And I've got a whole lot to say about that. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals revealed it was shocking. I was actually very, very surprised, very shocked to find out that they ruled correctly on something crazy, right? And it's more than just, hey, here's good news for the Trump administration. We're going to continue to prevent refugees from flooding our nation. It's actually bigger than that, because this represents to me the potential shift in the way that the appellate courts are handling these radical leftist activist woke judges that are trying to be presidents, because that's really what it is. It comes down to they are attempting to exert their will upon the American people by by acting as technically President of the United States. If they can stop him from doing stuff, then that means that they have supremacy over him, and that just shouldn't be the case. I'm not suggesting that a president should not be beholden to the laws of the land, the Constitution, or to the judiciary when it comes to constitutional issues. By no means. We do need that balance of power, but this is not a balance of power. This is what we've seen so far during the Trump administration is the activist judiciary's abuse of power. And it needs to be corrected either internally or externally, one way or the other. Either they figure out how to reel themselves in, or Congress needs to act, or something, because this cannot stand. I'll be spending a great deal of time on a story by Michael Snyder over at endoftheamericandream.com. 8 strange things that are taking place right now around us that just aren't getting covered. And these are the types of stories that I love to cover. Look, you can go watch Charlie Kirk or Dan Bongino. Well, I guess you can't watch Dan Bongino anymore, but you can watch any conservative, whatever, show hosts and get, oh, look, this just happened. Executive order, this just happened. Oh, yeah, boom, boom. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. But you don't need, as a country, we don't need an additional voice chiming in on every move by Democrats, Republicans, Trump, anti-Trumpers, Musk, whatever. We don't need that. What we need is more exposure to stories that perhaps aren't getting enough coverage, that aren't being talked about, not just by legacy media, but also conservative and alternative media. It's conspicuous that I have not covered, just yet, I have not covered the pyramids, the conspiracy, if you want to call it that. It's not even, conspiracy is the wrong word. The oddity, the mystery surrounding the SAR scans under the pyramids in Egypt, the Giza pyramid, in particular the middle one, that apparently has all these tunnels and columns and rooms down below. It's crazy stuff. I've held off temporarily because I want to see more data. The data that I've seen thus far, that everybody's reporting on, and I don't blame them for that. It's important to report on it, but I have questions. I'm not trying to debunk it. Don't get me wrong. I think that it's probably accurate, but I'm not sure if the conclusions thus far have been accurate, not based upon the data that I've seen. And so I'm definitely not, again, I think that so far, everything that we know seems to be close to the truth. I would just like to see if there's something closer to the truth, a greater, more aligned to reality conclusions that can be made from this. Because so far, everything that I've seen has pointed to, yes, there's definitely something. Could it be this? Could it be that? We don't know. But I do think that it does tie back in many ways to the days of the Tower of Babel. I'm not saying that it's the Tower of Babel. Don't take that the wrong way. But I have a feeling that that the pyramids, and not just these pyramids, but perhaps other pyramids, ziggurats across the globe, could stem from the spreading out of the nations, the confounding of the languages, and then attempts by various peoples across the planet to try to recreate what they were trying to build with the Tower of Babel and failing. And I would say that if that theory is correct, then that would mean that the pyramids of Giza may represent one of, if not the closest they got to trying to duplicate what they lost when they were split apart by God, their languages confounded, and no longer able to build the actual Tower of Babel. I'd say these are ripoffs, maybe, partially complete, but we'll see. Again, and I just jumped from one story to the other. Those are two separate issues here, okay? What we learned through the SAR scans, what I'm theorizing regarding the Tower of Babel, these are two different stories, but they might be aligned. We'll see. Watch. You watching? You didn't expect that, did you? What about this one? Magic. Anyway, yeah, they might be aligned, so we will see. No guarantees. We will try to see if there is alignment. And if there's not, there's not. One thing that I can promise you, if you do subscribe to and watch the JD Rucker Show on a regular basis, is that just because something might be interesting, compelling, click-worthy, or whatever, if it ain't true, it ain't true. If it's something that I don't believe to be at least likely, if not certain, then I'm not going to cover it. So that's the whole reason that I have not touched on what really is a blockbuster story. I mean, everybody's talking about it. Glenn Beck did it. Joe Rogan's done it. Yeah, everybody's talking about this story, and yet I'm not there yet. I just want more data before I report it to y'all. Speaking of subscribing, please be sure to subscribe. Okay, go right now. Just go ahead, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you're watching on YouTube, on X, on Rumble, subscribe or follow. I guess you don't subscribe. Well, you can subscribe, but you don't need to subscribe on X. You just follow me, x.com/JD Rucker. Or if you're on Rumble or wherever, BitChute, Brighteon, various places where I do publish my show, please go ahead and subscribe. Give me that thumbs up, that all-important like button or whatever it is, depending upon where you're watching or listening. It does help. It helps greatly, and when I can use all the help I can get. We've put a lot of effort over the last couple of months in trying to improve the show, make it far more consistent, sticking to appropriate times, sticking to schedules and all this stuff, and really gearing a good chunk of my life around it. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a dramatic increase in viewership. Now, YouTube we have. we have seen quite a bit of a bump over at YouTube, but my Rumble numbers are creeping up. My Apple Podcast numbers are creeping up. My X numbers are pretty stagnant, really. And of course, YouTube, we are growing. And it's funny because YouTube is the one area, the one channel that I do sort of on the side. I'm not a fan of YouTube. Granted, now, to be clear, they have become, ever since President Trump was elected, they've become far more open to crazy people like me. But I don't think that's permanent, number one, which is why I recommend going to jdrucker.com/find and subscribing everywhere where you have an account, simply because that does make it to where if I get chopped at one area, such as on Spotify, where I haven't been on Spotify since January of 2021. I wonder why. Haven't been there, stuff like that. It's good to have those backups. Right now, YouTube has been treating me very fairly, and I appreciate that. But you never know. You never know how things will change, even during this administration or after. So that's why I strongly recommend diversifying your JD Rucker portfolio, so to speak. Speaking of which, let's go to a short break, a short word from our sponsor, and then we'll go straight into the stories right after that. Is cryptocurrency a safe investment to back your wealth or your retirement or your life's savings? The answer to that question is I have no idea. And I know that my sponsors probably just had a heart attack when I said that, but it's true. And here's the thing. Anybody who says that they know for sure whether cryptocurrencies are a good investment for this or that or the other, they're probably selling you something. One of the reasons that I personally like to work with Block Trust, the reason that I tell people to go to jdrcrypto.com so they can also consider working with Block Trust, is because they're straightforward, they're honest, but perhaps most importantly, they know what they don't know. That's why they rely on artificial intelligence-driven data to help them make decisions on your behalf. With their managed accounts, they can get you into crypto and have you trading like an expert without you actually having to become a crypto expert. They make moves. They try to determine, okay, is Bitcoin going to go up? Is it going to go down? Artificial intelligence tells us it's probably going to go down. Let's go ahead and pull everybody out of crypto, put them in cash for a while, and then once it hits a certain mark, then we'll put them right back in. We'll try to advance their portfolio, whether it's an IRA or 401k or, again, cash. They're extraordinarily easy to work with. Go to jdrcrypto.com to learn more. See what they say. This is a very patriotic company, a very bullish company when it comes to crypto for obvious reasons. But I want to be clear. Just like me, they were very skeptical about even getting into the industry prior to President Trump's election. Once President Trump was elected, it made sense. They worked with partners who've been in the crypto industry for years, platforms that have been used in the past by hedge funds. Now they are open to the public. And it is, again, because President Trump won. This has changed the game for cryptocurrency, and it is allowing Americans, of whether you're a crypto expert or a crypto novice or anywhere in between, this new, brave new world that we're experiencing in cryptocurrency can be most easily navigated by working with Block Trust. Go to jdrcrypto.com, see what they can do with your retirement, your cash, whatever. It's easy. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not telling you, go buy crypto, go buy gold, go buy chickens. Actually, on that last one, it probably would be a good idea to go buy chickens. Ninth Circuit Court allows President Trump to continue his pause on refugee admissions. This comes to us as somewhat of a surprise because we are talking about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. They have a reputation as being arguably the most progressive court of appeal in the land, and yet here we are, reversing a woke decision by an activist judge. This could actually be much bigger news than, or at least have more repercussions than just the effects on the refugee admissions program. I'll get to that in a second. Let's first start off with the article itself, which comes to us from The Right Scoop. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals just blocked an order by a lower court judge that would have forced President Trump to restart refugee admissions. According to Kyle Cheney, who's on X, no relation to Liz or Dick, the Ninth Circuit has stayed a judge's order, forcing the Trump administration to restart refugee admissions. The court will still require the administration to process refugees conditionally approved before January 20th, but new admissions can be paused. Now, that little throw-in at the end by the court is sort of funny because the Trump executive order did not mention anything prior to his administration. It was only referring to new admissions. So for them to come out and say, hey, you can't go back in time, that's sort of odd. Or is it? Could it be a signal, a sign? Because we are talking about a court of appeals that was made up of one Clinton appointee and one Biden appointee, along with a Trump appointee, and at least two of the three would have had to have voted to stay the lower court's order. Could this be a sign that the appellate courts, which generally speaking, even the woke ones, are more constitutionally aligned than the lower courts? Just by their very nature, appellate courts are supposed to look at the Constitution. Well, I mean, all judges are supposed to defend the Constitution, but in reality, lower court judges, as we've learned very acutely ever since President Trump has started issuing executive orders, lower court judges tend to flex their powers and express their opinions more so than be guided by the Constitution. In other words, they have a plan that they want to initiate, an agenda, and then they try to back their way in by making sort of semi-constitutional arguments. The appeals court can't do that. I mean, they can, I guess, but they generally speaking do not do that nearly as much as the lower court judges. Now, this reversal could signal, basically be the first one on the dance floor, so to speak, open what we would hope to be the floodgates of appeals courts overturning the rulings of lower court judges, lower court activist judges. Okay, the appeals courts have a lot more at stake when it comes to whether or not they rule correctly. Lower court judges can express their perspectives, I guess, more freely, simply because there is less at stake when you are an appeals court. You are judged based upon whether or not your appeals rulings are overturned by the Supreme Court. If you have too many of your own rulings overturned by the Supreme Court, that looks bad on you, and that greatly hampers your reputation as well as your potential for advancement within the United States judiciary. So hopefully, Lord willing, this is a sign that other courts of appeal will follow suit, take these activist woke judges, and introduce them to the Constitution. President Trump is seeking ways to use an executive order to completely end sanctuary cities in the United States of America. Watch.
We're looking at one, I will tell you right now, that I think perhaps will be controversial, but not with the people, and that's sanctuary cities. We're going to end sanctuary cities for some of these jurisdictions that aren't cooperating with law enforcement. They're guarding criminals. They're taking the rights away from the citizens of this state and their city. And we're going to be ending sanctuary cities if we find it necessary to do in certain major areas. And we may just end the entire thing altogether because it's just a way of protecting criminals. And nobody else is benefited by that. And for some reason, Democrats want to keep and they want to shield criminals from being sent back to their countries or being sent to prison. And in the meantime, the crime rate has gone through the roof. Under Biden, it was through the roof. It's starting to come down, but we're taking a lot of people out of here. So we may be presenting you very shortly with a executive order ending sanctuary cities.
Amen to that. You know, generally speaking, I am a big fan of limited government federalism. I do not believe that the federal government should impose itself on states, counties, cities in any way, allow for more localized government whenever applicable. It's not applicable when it comes to sanctuary cities. They are breaking the law, and they are breaking the law in a way that does harm to their actual citizens. Just the concept of sanctuary cities makes no sense to me, and it shouldn't make sense to anybody who really thinks about it. We're not talking about sanctuary for just regular average illegal aliens or for naturalized citizens or green card holders or anything like that. We're talking about sanctuary for known criminals. That shouldn't be the case. It's not like they have sanctuary cities for citizen criminals. Oh, you know, if you committed a crime, come here and we'll keep you from being arrested. You know, it's only for illegal alien criminals. And that obviously makes no sense. It doesn't help the community. It doesn't help any individuals other than the criminals themselves. So, yeah, I am a limited government federalist. In this case, I am all for President Trump using the power of the executive branch as it pertains to the law in this case, because these sanctuary cities are breaking the law by not enforcing the law. And as the enforcer of the law at the highest level, that being the White House, the executive branch, and President Trump in particular, I am all for this. Let's end the scourge of sanctuary cities here in the United States of America. President Trump signs sweeping election integrity executive order that should actually have an impact, hopefully, before the 2026 election. To be clear, the 2020 election was stolen. Many of the 2022 elections were stolen. They tried to steal or would have tried to steal the 2024 election, except it was too big to rig. There, got that out of the way. Now, let's see what President Trump is doing, since apparently most state legislators and even our own Republican-led House and Senate aren't really doing much to address election integrity, so we're just going to have to rely on President Trump to do it, I suppose. Watch.
Sir, we have an executive order for your attention on the very important subject of election integrity. We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on for a while, sir, but the compliance with national election day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Mm-hmm. Election fraud, you've heard the term. We'll end it, hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other. And it's an honor to sign this one. To sign all of them, but to sign this one is a great honor.
Good stuff there. And yes, this is the most sweeping. This is, when he says the most sweeping, this is really the only that I can think of. And I've been looking at voter fraud executive orders for a long time. There hasn't been much in the way of national legislation. There's been next to nothing in the way of executive orders that actually go after election fraud. There's been plenty of executive orders out there that have enhanced or improved voter fraud, but this is the first one that I can recall that really does take steps. Now, elections should be run by the states. That's what the Constitution says, but that does not mean that they can do whatever they want or go against the Constitution. Just because the Constitution says it belongs to the states doesn't mean that the states can then break the Constitution. That's not how it works. That's why they try so much lawfare, because they are trying to get around, subvert, suppress, minimize the Constitution itself, they being the radical left. Well, President Trump has had enough. He, of course, was the victim of at least 2 attempts, if not 3. There's a good chance that they did try to steal it in 2016. I think the more likely scenario is they didn't think they were going to need to try to steal it in 2016, and they were caught off guard, and that's kind of what launched this whole election integrity, voter fraud scam that's been going on, I would argue, since at least 2020, probably in 2018, almost certainly in 2022, and they would have done it in 2024 at the presidential level if they thought they could do enough to overcome the too big to rig scenario. But I do believe that they still engaged in a whole lot of voter fraud in 2024, especially the states, basically any cities or states, okay, that took a long time to count. Pretty much all of them went to the Democrats. Nearly all of them went to the Democrats. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why Pennsylvania is the way it is. There's a reason why Arizona is the way it is. Even out here in California, there were a lot of what should have been, I would say, very winnable races, and yet they all turned away. So you're telling me that the President Trump was able to raise Republican interest, pull more independents into the Republican Party, not necessarily registering as Republicans, but at least voting Republican, even grabbing a whole bunch of Democrats to vote Republican, and yet in the tightest races where the most corruption has been historically present, such as Arizona, that's where all of a sudden, I don't know, I guess the Democrats or the independents or whoever was voting for Trump, they didn't vote for Kari Lake. Okay, they voted for Trump and then Ruben Gallego. It made no sense. But hopefully we are heading in that direction. And I've long said that just because we had a good 2024 presidential election does not mean that the fight against voter fraud is over. If anything, they're going to double and triple and quadruple down to make voter fraud a thing. They want to control it. They're going to take it from different angles. They're going to try different states, look for new areas, new potential opportunity zones. They've been trying to crack the whole Texas thing for years, and I don't think they're going to stop until they do. And they won't be able to just do it by making the state feel more purple. They're going to have to engage in voter fraud. Now we can do this is good. Okay, this is a good step for the president, but you really need national legislation. But more importantly, you need the states to get on board and figure it out. And you need to make this an issue. If you're in a state such as I am here in California, if you're in a state that's Democrat-run, then arguably the most important state legislation you can push for is election integrity. And call them out. Make a fuss about it. Make an issue. Start an organization. Get going on social media or go live or whatever. Do whatever you need to do to make it into an election issue before the next election. Make them know that you want them to be on board with it. And the key here is to explain to them and just make them fully understand, they being the Democrats in your blue states, or blue cities, make them understand that election integrity, if they are so confident in their policies, so confident in their control of their blue cities and blue states, then they should be perfectly fine with voter fraud. We'll call them election integrity initiatives, because it's not always just voter fraud. There are other ways where elections can be manipulated or outright stolen. So I don't want to be just very specific about voter fraud itself. There are other issues that need to be addressed. Focusing on election integrity and forcing as many of these states as possible to address it nationwide, but state by state. That's the key. So is this a good news? Absolutely. I really like the part about prosecutions. All too often there's this unfortunate shielding cycle, is what I call it. It's a round robin of shields against that protects people, protects criminals, those who engage in election integrity, in voter fraud. They are the problem, and oftentimes they're in places like, for example, Philadelphia, where they're protected by the officials that they're helping to get elected, who are working with the judges and the district attorneys that were put there by Soros, that are helping to fuel the people, that are then helping the politicians to protect. It's a cycle, right? Nobody's going to prosecute them if they do get caught. Nobody's going to try to catch them through law enforcement, and nobody's going to open a case against them, and nobody's going to investigate, and the media is not going to look into it, and then you've got rampant, widespread voter fraud in these radically blue cities, despite the fact that they continue to suffer. I mean, I've said this for a long time, I do believe that Chicago has woken up at least 4 or 5 times over the last 2 decades. Chicago has realized, the people of Chicago have realized, because they have suffered through arguably the greatest degree of Democrat failure of any major city in the United States of America when you look at the past 3 or 4 decades. And yet they keep voting for Democrats nonstop. That you can't, it's sort of like, think of it like they have been so indoctrinated into the idea that Democrats have to win that they end up helping to make sure the Democrats win. I know it's a really shoddy way of declaring it. Let me think if I can find a better way. Basically, it's almost like no, I don't want to go down that road. Let's just say that because Democrats have controlled the city for so long that they don't know another way, and they can't even imagine there being another way. Every now and then, including most recently with their sanctuary city status, with all of the massive amounts of money that they put towards housing and feeding and educating and clothing and all that other stuff for illegal aliens, the people are fed up. There has been a 4th or 5th awakening in Chicago. Will it be quelled like every single one of these awakenings in the past? They have these little mini revolutions where it's like, okay, well, you guys have failed us for too long. We're going to go Republican. And then they get shut down. And next thing you know, they're still voting for Democrats. Or at least it looks like they're voting for Democrats. Long story short is that pushing for election integrity by executive order is a great symbolic opening step with some pretty good, strong details in there. Again, strongest executive order regarding voter integrity, as far as I know, like in our modern history. But it's just the start. There has to be legislation at the state level for sure, and even possibly at the national level, just to codify the idea of, American citizen gets one vote for their districts, their areas, their surroundings, whether they're voting for county, district, city, state, whatever they're voting, or national, whatever they're voting for, they get one vote. And nobody else can vote for them, and they can't mail it in, they can't do any of these other things, because that's where we get into real bad stuff. Kudos to President Trump and the administration. Finally gets to see Susie Wiles. She's been kind of hiding. I've never seen a chief of staff, White House chief of staff, who was more camera shy than Susie Wiles, but there she was, sitting next to her president. Good stuff there. Here's a true story. I was testing out some coffee. This has been almost a year ago. Testing out some coffee for a potential sponsor. And I had made the coffee, and I went about my morning routine, did my work, doing my thing, and then I took my first sip of coffee. And it struck me. I'm like, holy crap. I had forgotten that I had was testing out this new coffee, I just took the first sip and I was like, wow, this is really good. And then I remembered, oh my gosh, this is Promised Grounds. This is the stuff that they sent me. So I started drinking some more of it, and I have become a lifetime customer of Promised Grounds. They are a Christian coffee company, which I know you don't see a whole lot of them. They give back to the community. They're Texas, all American, all Texan, just like a lot of the stuff that we do. Check them out. Go to jdrucker.com/coffee, jdrucker.com/coffee, and check out Promised Grounds. It's great. If there's one thing that people who are brand new to prepping often forget, it's the long-term storage meds. I think a lot of times people either forget them or they don't realize that they can acquire medications that can be held for an extended period of time. My good friends over at Jace Medical, they've got you covered, whether it's for chronic meds for illnesses that you or your family members have, whether it's antibiotics, just being ready for whatever is going to happen in the world. These are things that you should have available to you if you're going to be preparing for self-reliance in the long haul. Go to jdrucker.com/meds, jdrucker.com/meds. Use promo code RUCKER10, the number 10, RUCKER10 at checkout, and you get a nice discount on top of that. jdrucker.com/meds. 8 things that the legacy media is being strangely quiet about right now. This article comes to us via Michael Snyder. If you prefer to read the article or just read along as I'm going through it and discussing the various 8 topics, you can do so by clicking on the link just below this video. So let's get into it. Let's just cut straight to the chase. This is we have it cross-posted over at AmericanPoliticalReport.com. And these are very strange things. The news cycle has become so predictable lately. Corporate media outlets find something that they think the Trump administration has done wrong, and then they pound on it until they find something else that they think the Trump administration has done wrong. Rinse and repeat. In response, conservative media outlets jump on the stories that the corporate media is reporting and vigorously defend the Trump administration. Meanwhile, there are lots of very important stories that are not getting the attention that they truly deserve. And I have long said that oftentimes the overall news cycle, I'm not just talking about the legacy media news cycle, I'm talking about the overall news cycle is designed to keep everybody in conservative and alternative media as stuck on the hamster wheel as possible. In other words, I would love to be able to cover certain stories that I think are extraordinarily important to the American people, but I often find myself being sucked right back into whatever the latest blow up by legacy media is. You'll notice, just as a quick note, you will notice that I have not covered and will not be covering the whole Signal chat thing today. I mean, I know it's a big story. I have a lot to say about it, but everybody else is already talking about it, and so there's no need for me to reiterate what other people are already saying, or even to come up with my own reasons why it's a big deal, it's not a big deal. Mike Waltz is dumb, he's fine, he's smart, whatever. You don't need that. So we're going to cover a lot of these stories like this one right here, where you're not necessarily getting the whole picture from anybody in the media. Back to the article. One of the things that I like to do is to draw attention to stories that I believe are being seriously underreported. The following are 8 things that the mainstream media is being strangely silent about right now. And as I've often said, Michael Snyder, I don't always agree with his conclusions, but I love his research. He is able to really highlight so many of the things that we as Americans need to be paying attention to, and oftentimes we're not, because both legacy media and conservative media tend to ignore some of the stories that can really make a difference. For example, number 1, unknown aircraft continue to fly with complete impunity over key military bases all over the United States. Remember the whole drone scare, drone concern in November, December, even into January, and then all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. You know, President Trump said that he was going to reveal what it was. He did. There were reports. It was such a nothing burger that I don't even recall what was said. It was something like, oh yeah, we knew about these. FAA was aware. We just left everybody hanging for weeks at a time. And people were scared and concerned, and I think rightly so. But the drones haven't gone away. They're just not being reported. They've moved, a lot of them. And I think they've become more spread out, but they are still there, just in different places. He pulls this particular report from thehill.com. And this is a recent story. This is from, I believe, either today or yesterday. Objects exhibiting advanced technology continue to fly with complete impunity over sensitive military installations and critical infrastructure. Despite the Pentagon's advanced imaging and sensor capabilities, the nature, purpose, and origin of these enigmatic crafts are unknown, raising an array of pressing national security concerns. In interviews with 60 Minutes earlier this month, two recently retired four-star Air Force generals and the Air Force commander overseeing North American airspace defense begrudgingly admitted that the drones that loitered in dramatic fashion over key military assets in recent years remain a confounding mystery. Now, we don't know if they really are a mystery. They could be. I mean, it's definitely possible that they really don't know what they are, and that would concern us. But what if they do know exactly what they are? Why would these aircraft be allowed to fly over military bases? I remember, this was, probably 2 decades ago. I remember we were on the highway, and the highway was I-5 in California. We're passing Pendleton, and the traffic was just done, okay? I mean, we were trying to drive north and couldn't move. So it's like, and there was an Apache helicopter. I had my kids with me. So, we were like, hey, let's pull off. So we pulled off just the exit. There's a little gravel parking lot there. So we pulled off, and I pull out my phone. Again, we're talking about a long time ago. So it's not like, I say 2 decades. It was probably, I'm going to peg it at about 2008. So it was a while ago. But still, pull off. We're looking, oh, look, there's an Apache. And, pull out the phone and start recording. And okay. Military, I think it wasn't a Humvee, it was some other military vehicle, pulls up. It's like, sir, you know that you're not allowed to. I was like, no, I had no idea. I'm just coming off the highway. I just thought, oh, wow, that's cool. That's an Apache. And I mean, they were on me instantaneously. And I had to, of course, delete the video that I was shooting of the Apache helicopter near. I wasn't even in the base. It wasn't flying over the base. I was just near the base, and it was flying over the ocean. And they were on it. So for them, they being whoever they are, the military or DARPA, somebody in the Pentagon, somebody in intelligence, for them to all either not know what's going on or know what's going on, that concerns us. Because if they don't know what's going on, that's a big deal. If they know what's going on, and they're unwilling to tell us, and they're unwilling to stop it, that might even be worse. If you stop and think about it, that's like, oh, wow, okay, so here they are, and whoever it is, whatever it is, it's flying over military bases. Apparently, we can't stop them. So we're just going to hope that nobody notices and act frustrated on 60 Minutes in 2025. Back to the article. Number 2, the Department of Government Efficiency has discovered that the Small Business Administration made 5,593 loans to borrowers whose only listed owner was 11 years old or younger at the time of the loan. Now, if you get your news from conservative media, you probably have seen this story. It was making big news. It made its rounds on X. Most conservative outlets picked it up, but I went to see what legacy media outlets picked it up, and none. I mean, literally none of them spent. NBC, I believe, spent like 30 seconds on it or something like that, but it really wasn't covered. According to this article, and this comes to us from, doesn't even say which one, in 2020 and 2021, SBA granted 5,593 loans for $312 million to borrowers whose only listed owner was 11 years old or younger at the time. While it is possible to have business arrangements where this is legal, this is highly unlikely for these 5,593 loans, as they all also used a social security number with the incorrect name. In other words, these were fraudulent. 5,000 loans, $312 million. You'd think that maybe legacy media would consider that to be a big deal. Number 3, domestic terrorists just planted multiple incendiary devices at a Tesla dealership in Austin. But this incredibly alarming story has already disappeared from the news cycle. The following comes from a brief ABC News story about this incident that was posted yesterday. And if you do get your news from proper sites, such as thelibertydaily.com or americafirstreport.com, then you will know that we posted these stories, and we actually posted multiple stories about this topic. I think we actually covered it more so than the aforementioned ABC News, but let's see what it says, just in case you missed it. Multiple incendiary devices were found at a Tesla dealership in Austin, Texas on Monday morning, according to the Austin Police Department. Officers located the suspicious devices after responding to a Tesla dealership on U.S. Route 183 just after 8 a.m. local time and called the Austin Police Department bomb squad to investigate. The devices were determined to be incendiary and were taken into police custody without incident. Yeah, that's not a big deal. Now, I guarantee you this. If they had found incendiary devices at a LGBTQIA plus bar, this would be the only story being talked about today. But because it was at a Tesla dealership, they're like, oh, wow. Moving on. Number 4. Far-left radicals at anti-government rallies throughout the nation are openly calling for violence against government officials. These, of course, are apparently, according to legacy media, these would be those pesky, mostly peaceful protesters. Another blathered about hanging Trump by his ankles from a lamppost until dead, stating the only good fascist is a dead fascist. That's sort of incendiary, don't you think? Another attendee stated that violence is the only thing they're going to listen to now, they being, I guess, us and the Trump administration. I feel like we've done the rallies if, quote-unquote, violence is what we need to do, then that's what we need to do. Now, I want you to we need to take this very seriously, extremely seriously, because whether you would like to attribute it to mental disorders, mental illnesses, or as I like to attribute it to something that's demonic or even satanic, this plague, this psychological dilemma has taken control and is exerting more control over, I don't know how many, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of Americans. People walking around you right now are crazy enough to want to commit violence against you for no apparent reason. Okay, we saw the seeds of this. Remember the good old days where the worst thing that could possibly happen randomly, not the worst, but where there was a rash of random attacks on people that wore MAGA hats, okay, during Trump's first administration. Well, it's gotten a lot further now. It's gotten to the point to where not only are these random acts of violence seemingly increasing, but they're becoming more dangerous, more deadly, and seemingly more random. It's not just that they're going after Teslas, for example. There's this, I don't know, spirit, aura of malcontent. It's the best way I can put it, and I apologize for not being able to explain it properly, but this is a realm that I'm not quite ready to touch on completely, because it is dangerous. All I'm suggesting, and I tell this to my family, doesn't matter what your situation is, if you're going to the gas station, the grocery store, picking up your kids at school, even if you just notice people out and about, stay frosty. I'm not telling you to be scared, okay? I'm not saying live in fear, okay? But be aware. It was probably 2-3 weeks ago. It was a late night run to the gas station, okay? My wife was going on a semi-trip, okay? She's going up to LA, and she needed her car full of gas, and I'd forgotten to do it throughout the day, so I'm going to a gas station around midnight, okay, to fill up her tank for her. And I noticed that, so there's one other car there, and I noticed that there's a couple of guys on bicycles, of all things. Bicycles that were there, and they were young, but they weren't kids, okay? We're talking, probably late teens, but more likely probably early 20s, a couple of them, and they kept circling right around the dumpsters. And I thought to myself, okay, this looks kind of odd. It looked like they were going to try to come after the guy that was there before. And as I recall, oddly enough, I believe that no, never mind, sorry, different incident. Anyway, the story's taking too long. Let me cut to the chase. I went ahead, rushed through. I was going to go inside and give me like a Celsius or something. I decided, you know what, let me just rush through. And I'm conspicuously made my, sort of puffed up my chest and was like watching, not staring, just watching them, making sure that they knew that I was facing their direction, and any moves that they made, I would be noticing. I was right by the gas can or the gas pump, got it finished, kept watching, did my thing, got in the car, started up, kept watching. And, the other guy was finishing up too, went ahead and waited for him to finish, because I didn't want to leave and then leave him hanging either. So it's like, okay, this does seem suspicious. So I drive away. I wait for the guy. He leaves. I leave as well. And then I circle back around. I just wanted to see. I circle back around. I come back to the guy. I want you to be clear here. This is in a very nice neighborhood. Okay, it was off the high, not nice neighborhood. It was it was in a nice gas station, right next to a nice, really amazing steakhouse that we love. And, but again, late at night. So I pull back in. Turn around, pull back in, not to the gas station, but just the street. It's a little side street. Pull in and park, and I'm just watching. And sure enough, okay, those two kids, they're on bicycles. They start to sort of circle around, and then 5 more guys that were in the, they had one of those fences that was around the dumpster. 5 more guys emerge, all on bicycles, and then they were back there in the dumpster area, and they all left. All 7 of them left, and it's like, wow, I wonder what they would have done if I didn't come and see that guy. Or maybe they were watching that guy and seeing if anybody else was coming. What if the guy was never there and I was by myself? Or what if I left early or the guy left early? It seemed as if, and I can't confirm this, but it seemed as if this was going to be some sort of carjacking or whatever. And I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been. With that said, it could have been nothing. It really could have been nothing. This could have just, maybe they were back there doing drugs and they had a couple of lookouts. I couldn't tell you. I wasn't close enough to know that what they were doing, but it is odd that you have 5 guys on bicycles leaving they would have been jam-packed in there because it's not like there's a lot of space. So 5 guys on bicycles with 2 more guys outside on bicycles at a gas station around midnight. I don't know. But I'm glad that I don't know. I'm glad that I'll never know, because to have found out exactly what they were doing, chances are there was, it wouldn't have worked out very well for me or for potentially somebody else. So, point is, after that long and drawn out story, point is that stay frosty. Be aware of your situation. Be aware of your circumstance. Never assume that any place is going to be safe, because there are crazies out there. No, I'm not suggesting, those 7 guys were clearly anti-Trump. It's not just about being anti-Trump or anti-Musk or anti-American or anti-anything. It just seems to be a spirit of mayhem, a spirit of chaos, a spirit of evil that appears to be, in my humble opinion, continuing to emerge here in the United States of America. One of the best ways to stay ahead of the deep state and to understand the machinations of the globalist elite cabal is to get information from people in the know, such as former CIA analyst Jim Rickards. Go to jdrucker.com/crisis, jdrucker.com/crisis, and see what information they have for you today. All right, number 5. There are plans to create, let me get back on the screen. There are plans to create a new Islamic city on 402 acres of land in Texas that would include over 1,000 houses, a mosque, a faith school, a community college, and sports facilities. I'm not going to read this because we covered this before. I covered this, was it this week? No, it was last week. I covered this last week, and I covered it 2 or 3 weeks ago, or last month, when the story first broke. But even since then, this will be the 3rd time that I'm talking about Epic City in Texas. And those 3 times that I'm talking about it are 3 more times than anyone in legacy media is talking about it. Now, there was a story today, earlier today, that came out, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I probably should have read it before doing the story, but hey, here we are. So there has been movement or some sort of action, and I have the story bookmarked. I don't know what happened. If you guys are in the chat and you want to say, hey, this is what happened, or not chat, but the comments, because I don't generally read chat anymore, apologies, but comments do stay. They stay for until after the fact, and I have reached out to people, by the way. I love getting comments. I used to hate comments, but apparently the comments that we're getting, whether it's on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, X, the commenters, you guys are getting what's the word for it? You're educating me sometimes, and I love that. But so that story's not getting covered nearly by really anybody. Number 6, the number of people living in the United States that were born outside of the country has reached the highest level ever recorded. Let me repeat that. And I think it's important that we also know that it's not just the highest level, it's also the highest percentage. The number of people living in the United States that were born outside of the country has reached the highest level ever recorded. Now look, for those who don't know, I was born outside of the country. Granted, I moved here when I was an infant, and I have no recollection, nor do I have any dual citizenship or anything like that. I am an American citizen, but I am also technically a migrant. I was not born here in the United States. My father was in the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, and yada, yada, yada. But the point is that I would qualify as foreign-born. And I'm not suggesting that anybody who is foreign-born is necessarily bad. That would be dumb of me to say that, because that would be saying that I'm bad. But with that said, the percentage should be pretty minimal. And you would argue, I don't know the statistics, but I would say that chances are most other nations have a far lower, and well, outside of the invasion that's happening in Europe, but most other nations have a far lower percentage of people that were born outside of their nation coming in, whether they're legal, illegal, whatever. This is talking about just anybody not born in the U.S. The article itself comes from MSM, so it's not going to be, immigrants bad, illegal aliens bad, and it's just going to talk about, the facts, allegedly, with their leftist tilt. But still, the number and share of the U.S. population that are foreign-born or are immigrants reached the record highs in January, a report says. Data from the government's current population survey shows that the foreign-born or immigrant population, legal and illegal together, hit 53.3 million people. 53.3 million people currently living in the United States that we know of are foreign-born nationals. Not gonna comment. And 15.8% of the total U.S. population in January 2025. Now, what does this mean? Or what's the real takeaway here? We could say we need to stop immigration. We could say, oh, great, everything's happening. Tom Homan and the ICE, they're getting deportations done. Folks, as awesome, and I don't want to downplay what they're doing because it's obviously been very incredible what they've been doing, but we're talking about an infinitesimal number of people that are getting deported today compared to the people that have already entered the nation. Again, whether legally or illegally. Should legal immigration be allowed to continue? You betcha. Except it needs to be very much, I would say, merit-based and very much restricted. We already have too many problems with illegal immigrants. We need to get that under control and get a whole bunch of people deported before we start opening the doors and bringing in more people from outside of this nation. So 53.3 million. I mean, that's insane. Okay, that's bigger than the population of any state. Scary days, folks. All right, number 7. During the partial solar eclipse that will happen on March 29th, many in North America will actually get to see, quote-unquote, solar horns. I'm not going to flash this horn sign. But that's not going to work. There's something special about the partial solar eclipse on March 29th, 2025. For North Americans in the night sky at the right time, and who get clear skies, there's a chance to see the unique spectacle of solar horns, a phenomenon where the cusps of an eclipse crescent sun appear as two distinct points above the horizon during sunrise. For observers in the northeastern U.S. and eastern Canada aiming to witness this rare event, selecting the optimal location is critical. Again, it looks like a bowl. You've seen it before. I'm not sure if that's huge news. It's, why isn't Legacy Media talking about this? It's interesting. All right, it's interesting. But here's one that we're getting hints, little bits and pieces, little debunkings here and there. and it's a story that I'm going to be covering here later this week. I'm getting a lot of details, and where you guys are going to want to tune into that. But it is number 8. An ancient 2,200-year-old pyramid-shaped structure has been found in the middle of the Judean desert. This is an incredible archaeological discovery, but hardly anyone is talking about it. Now, to be clear, we're talking about just prior to the time of Jesus. The story itself comes from J-Post, Jerusalem Post. An excavation in the Judean desert unearthed a massive 2,200-year-old pyramid-shaped structure alongside ancient papyri, weapons, tools, and fabrics, which experts are calling one of the richest archaeological excavations in the area. The Israel Antiquities Authority and the Heritage Ministry, which are jointly leading the dig north of Nahal Zohar, say the findings date to the Hellenistic period when the Ptolemies and Seleucids, ruled the land of Israel. I need to get my ancient pronunciations more aligned with reality. How many of these stories did you know? I knew all of them, actually, but yeah, legacy media is not covering it. They're not covering any of these, and they should be. Maybe not the eclipse horns. That wasn't that big of a deal. But everything else, these are important stories. These are stories that Americans want to hear. It can't just be Trump says this, then Jasmine Crockett says this, and then Adam Schiff does this, and then Mike Waltz does this. We're not a political nation per se. And the alternative, which a lot of people lean on, is, then I guess we're a Hollywood nation and an entertainment nation. No. There are so many interesting things happening, so many mysteries. And I think we need to, as Americans, strive more to be discoverers, strive more to be researchers, scholars. You know, the concept of being a scholar isn't necessarily, oh my gosh, he went to Princeton. The concept, the reality in today's world, especially with the internet, especially with all of the wealth of human knowledge at our fingertips at any given moment, we should all strive to know more. I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm not trying to make fun of you if you go to a Taylor Swift concert. Okay, yeah, I would definitely make fun of you if you went to a Taylor Swift concert, but you get the idea. I'm just suggesting that we can't just sit here and rant all day. That's what the left does, okay? They sit there and they dream about Elon Musk. They dream about burning Tesla dealerships or doing bad things to President Trump or members of his administration or beating up people wearing MAGA hats or whatever. We can't fall into that negativity, fall into that trap of being basically single source people when it comes to our news and our actions. Our news and our actions should be completely different, okay? What we're reading, what we're learning, shouldn't be driving everything that we're doing. Our biggest focus, of course, in my humble opinion, our biggest focus, especially in 2025, should be on advancing our understanding of the Bible, on praying more, fasting, repenting, learning the various things that we as people need to be doing. And if you might say, well, but I'm not a Bible-believing Christian. Well, then I would suggest researching it anyway and determining why so many people, including me, I'm obsessed with it. I think about it all the time. What can I do better? What can I do more of? As much as I am stuck, from a professional perspective, I got to focus on the news. But you'll notice, anybody who's been following me for long enough will realize that I pulled further and further and further away from politics and focused more and more and more on culture, conspiracy theories, and yes, faith. I think that is a good thing, and perhaps something that we, as Americans, should all be striving for. Again, whether you're a Bible-believing Christian or not. There's a gold rush, going on right now, not just by central banks, not just by entire countries, not just by those trying to refill Fort Knox before Elon Musk and President Trump get there. No, there's a gold rush happening amongst individual Americans. It's a gold and silver rush, and it's specifically attracting people of retirement age. People are starting to realize that Maybe they don't need their IRAs or 401ks or whatever stuck in the stock market. Maybe they should be looking at physical precious metals like gold and silver. Now, I am not a financial advisor, so I'm not going to give you advice. I'm just going to tell you who to talk to if you've already made up your mind and you think maybe I should consider it. Go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com, or call 800-200-4653. That's 800-200-GOLD. And check out what the folks over at Genesis Gold Group can do for you. They are a faith-driven precious metals company. They don't do the scams, the cheats, the tactics, such as, offering free or bonus silver. It's never free, and it's not really a bonus. You're paying for it. They just tack it onto the price and then say, "Oh, look, here's free, here's bonus." No. It's they probably have a good role to play in government, at least the old government. I would imagine that Doge and Elon Musk would sniff out their scams. But if you want to deal with a direct and honest company to do a tax-free rollover or transfer of your IRA, go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com. You'll receive a free definitive wealth protection kit, plus you will be contacted by my good friends at Genesis Gold Group. President Trump orders immediate declassification of FBI documents on Russia hoax investigation. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this story today because I'm going to save that for when we actually get the documents in our hands and we're able to go through and look at all the crap that was thrown against the wall in order for them to try to justify going after President Trump, then candidate Trump, and eventually even further into his first term. But we know the players. We know the FBI was involved, the CIA was involved, the Department of Justice as a whole was involved. We know that the Clinton campaign was involved, the failed Clinton campaign, and we know that the Obama administration was directly involved. Of course, this won't be covered very much by legacy media because it's going to paint a picture that they have been pretending to debunk for years, even after John Durham came out with his information saying that there was malfeasance. He did not go far enough and so did not force the issue. Lord willing, this information will force the issue. It will force legacy media to inform the general public about what really happened in those early days, first during the Trump campaign and then during the Trump administration. Let's go to this article from the Post Millennial by Roberto Wakerel Cruz. It says, President Donald Trump has ordered the immediate declassification of all FBI documents related to the Russian hoax investigation. According to President Trump, this is what he said on Tuesday, this gives the media the right to go in and check it. You probably won't bother because you're not going to like what you see. This was total weaponization. It's a disgrace. It should never happen in this country, but now you'll be able to see for yourselves, all declassified. The decision follows demands from Republican senators last week for the FBI and Department of Justice to release documents related to the investigation, which they argue will expose corruption within the agencies. Crossfire Hurricane was launched by the FBI in 2016 to investigate alleged ties between Trump's campaign and Russia. However, a special counsel investigation led by John Durham found that the probe was based on false information. Durham's 2023 report concluded that the FBI lacked sufficient factual evidence to justify the investigation and that both the FBI and DOJ failed to uphold their mission of strict fidelity to the law. Neither U.S. law enforcement nor the intelligence community appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion in their holdings at the commencement of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. In other words, when we say it was a Russian hoax, it was quite literally a Russia hoax. They had nothing. They manufactured everything and then claimed that their evidence and the justification for going after President Trump was the information that they had manufactured. It's ludicrous, but it's real. And this isn't just being exposed for the sake of oh yeah, look, see, we were right, Trump was right, everybody was wrong. This is more about the future. It's more about making sure that future FBIs, future CIAs, future departments of justice, future administrations understand that just because they think that they are immune from the law, from the scrutiny of the public today or at any given moment, doesn't mean that their sins will not be exposed in the future by a president such as President Donald Trump. We're not even halfway through the week, and it really has been a very crazy couple of days. We, as a show, we are trying to expand. I am currently selecting or picking between two networks that have invited me to come on. They are exclusive, not exclusive. Like wherever you're watching me right now, don't worry, I'm still going to be on there. That's one thing. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of, okay, so bring your content over here and stop using your Rumble account or whatever. No. I want, if you're watching me, wherever you're watching or listening to me, don't worry. The show's not going to disappear from here. With that said, I do have an intention of joining one of these networks and helping them to grow. Both are very good networks. One you've probably heard of, one you haven't. So really the question comes down to is, do I want to participate in a network that is known and growing, or a network that is brand new but also growing? That really is the big question that I have to answer. And so far the answer is I wish I could do both. That would be great. To anybody who's watched my show, you know that I do not participate in any networks that censor or stifle in any way. You know, if they tell me there's a subject that they don't want me to cover, well, I don't want to work with that network. And both of these networks have expressed a willingness to let even my crazy ideas go run free. And in both cases, the networks are open and very accepting of the notion that I do from time to time talk about the Bible. You know, you'd be shocked how many quote unquote conservative networks out there are like, yeah, they pull it like a Lundberg. Yeah, I don't think you should be talking about, you might offend our other, non-Christian. You might even offend some Christian. I heard that one. There's a lot of Christians that don't like these shows to be talking about faith. That's why they do on Sunday. And I'm like, well, maybe they should be talking about and learning more about faith the other 6 days a week as well. That's just, call me crazy. Be sure to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, why not? Why haven't you subscribed? You don't like me? Is that what it is? I can accept that. And make sure to like and all that good stuff as well, because we do need the thumbs up, the likes, the various things. It has nothing to do, by the way, with like, I saw a study, it's been probably 4 years now, but a study that shows there are endorphins that people that would, especially in the early days of social media, people would see their stuff get more likes and more follows or more whatever, retweets and shares or whatever, and it created like an endorphin response. I don't get that at all. I'll admit it. I don't care. It really. And that's why for a long time, I never asked about likes or anything like that. Now I do understand that if the intention here is to grow the show, to expand the audience, and to reach more Americans with the truth, then I have to ask for likes. I have to ask for thumbs up. And I have to question why people don't. Is it me? Is it something that I'm saying? Because if I'm not saying the right things, then I could totally understand why people wouldn't give me a thumbs up. But if you do appreciate what we're doing here, then please, it's literally just a click of a button. Thumbs up, like, whatever. Share it if you can, especially if you're on like X or whatever. Giving a repost, that's always a very, very positive thing. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.